Hello and welcome to my weekly comic video. For this week, it was an actually slightly big week, definitely bigger than last week's, but there really wasn't a whole lot of excitement in this week's pull. Anyhow, let's get going. First book up this month is Batman number 12. This is the first issue that is out of the Night of the Owls storyline, and really it's just a standalone issue. Nothing really big happens in it. It introduces a character that we may see again later on, but really nothing big was going on with it, and that's somewhat understandable, seeing as how next month is going to be the issue 0 month for DC, so they probably don't want to start anything new at this point. It's an interesting story, but it's not anything overly great. Pretty bland story. Next up, Batman and Robin number 12. This one completes a small 3-issue series going on in the book. It's not as boring as the Batman book was, but you know, they introduced a new group of villains, not really new group of villains, but a new grouping, should I say, of villains. It didn't really last too long, and really it was supposedly more of a understory about the whole Robin thing, all the different Robins, and it kind of goes against everything else that's going on with the characters in their own books, so it kind of flows a little awkwardly from that point of view. But you know, it was okay. Be kind of interesting to see what is going to be happening moving forward. I do believe that in the next book, the issue 0 for next month, it's going to focus on Damian's origin more than Batman's origin, since Batman's got like 4 books or whatever. So it's going to focus more on that, and hopefully it'll tell us what all kind of changed from the relaunch, and clear up some of the holes created by that. If you've been collecting the book, obviously it's not worth stopping, especially at the end of the story, to pick it up. But this 3-issue story isn't something that is going to make you want to add it to your list. The next book up is Fantastic Four 609. Now, this is another sort of standalone story. I think Marvel as a whole pretty much is on the kind of coasting until after this X-Men Avenger nonsense is finished. This particular issue in the book kind of closes out a chapter that was started many issues ago, almost a year ago plus, I believe, or something like that. Basically, ending the story about the group of heroes that came from the future, and the death of the future Galactus and all that stuff. The story is really out there. It's really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even for Fantastic Four. There's really not a whole lot of action going on, despite the misleading cover. So, I mean, if you're interested in knowing the how the group of characters ended, then go for it. Other than that, it's something that you can probably skip. Again, it's not something that you're gonna want to. It's not a convincing issue to add to your pull list. But I don't know. It's hard to justify the money on that unless you're already collecting it as a series. Next up is New Avengers number 29. Now, the New Avengers is another Avengers team primarily made up of the Avengers group that was created after the disassembled mess. This is another book it's technically a tie-in to the Avengers versus X-Men, though it's kind of behind the times a little bit as far as the overarching story goes. The book focuses on the slightly grouped, the Illuminati group, which I'll get into in another video, hopefully soon. What really stinks about this book, outside of it being part of the Avengers versus X-Men, is that outside of arguably Doctor Strange, none of the other characters are actually members of the New Avengers, which is kind of disheartening. And even Doctor Strange, who's sort of a new Avenger, really has nothing to do with the book. Add into the fact that the characters in this are so out of character that it makes it a hard read. Really, the New Avengers book has been going downhill pretty fast. I'm kind of interested to see if it's going to be stopped, or the series is going to be stopped when this whole mess is over with. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. This is one that I would recommend skipping if you're not already collecting the series. It's definitely not worth $4, and nothing gets accomplished in it. There's nothing new or revolutionary that gets added to the Avengers versus X-Men storyline that you wouldn't have already known if you're reading it. It is just not that good of an issue, and probably should have been placed in another book outside of the New Avengers. Now, for the next 3 comics, are probably the only comics this week that actually had something of a story arching development in them, which kind of puts them ahead of a little bit. First up, XMen Legacy number 271. This book it's another X-Men book out of the bajillion that's out there. And while it's probably not as entertaining as I found Wolverine and the X-Men, it's probably the I guess more or less close second. The problem with the book is it's been primarily focusing on Rogue for a while, and I know she's destined to be a bigger player in the Marvel universe than she has been, which is kind of interesting. She isn't exactly a new hero, but really hasn't had much attention to her. And so, it's not really a team book. It's been kind of mostly focusing on her. And if you haven't really been following her backstory, basically, she's learned to control her powers a little bit. She's evolved a little bit, but she's still basically the same mutant or individual that you've known for a long time now. The story picks up from the more X-Men versus Avengers, whatever tie-in books, where after Rogue went rogue against the X-Men, one of the Phoenix, Magica, whatever her name is, Ileana, whatever, teleported her away, potentially to a different dimension or whatnot, and she finds herself in a struggle on that particular planet or dimension, and she has to learn how to survive and whatnot. It's an okay little story. It's not exactly slow paced like a lot of the other Marvel stories out there, so it's got a little bit of a plus in that light. And I understand why. I mean, it's technically supposed to be a team book, not Rogue the series, and she's really the only one that's in it. Again, I don't mind it, but it's kind of a false advertising and kind of probably stinks if you've been collecting the book for a while. So there's a little bit of a warning as far as that goes, but other than that, it's been an okay book for the past couple issues, despite the Avengers versus X-Men tie-in. And if you want to read some good X-Men books, this one and Wolverine and the X-Men are probably the two that you're going to want to pick up. Next up, Mega Man 16. Another kind of an odd pick. It is an Archie's comic, so it could be considered a little bit more kid-like, and it is in its approach. The font is generally a little bit larger and definitely a lot designed for a little bit of a younger audience. However, compared to most of the stuff that's happening from the two major developers or publishers out there, a lot more is happening in the book. A lot more in the settings and all that stuff. Whereas, say, in an Avenger book, it could take 5 issues for them to, take care of a single warehouse or whatever. Here, we've got basically 2 issues, one setting up a story, and then this one, or setting up a situation, and this one ending it. So it's kind of a little bit of a refreshing for that standpoint. Basically, this particular issue, it ends the current sort of arc that's going on, or smaller arc going on, where Mega Man and a group of other robots are trying to protect humans, along with some other robots that are trying to blow up the place and whatnot, and a group of humans that are against robots and stuff like that. So, it is an interesting book if you can kind of not be turned off to the fact that it seems to be a little bit more kiddie than your typical ongoing book, and you are a fan of the games. And this is a book that I would suggest at least trying to pick up and seeing if you like it. Again, it's been a very entertaining route. If you play the games, you would recognize a lot of the characters, so you don't really have to worry too much about backstory. But it is a good series and probably well worth adding to your list if you're looking to add a good series to that list. The last book, a quick mention, Batgirl number 12. I've mentioned the Batgirl series a couple of times now. Basically, this issue picks up the continuing story about the current Nightfall, the current new villain and her group, and everything that's going on as far as that goes. It continues to be a very well done story. Gail Simone continues to do really well in the series. In this particular story, in the continuing story, is really no exception. The only bad thing is that this is not a standalone and it does not complete the story arc. So we have to wait 2 months until we get the next part of the story, which it kind of stinks. But it is what it is, and hopefully issue 0 will fill in a few gaps. You know, like was she ever Oracle? And if she was, you know, what did she do as Oracle? I mean, technically Birds of Prey didn't exist until just recently, and technically sort of, well, who knows what all happened. But so those are the pulls for this week. Again, it's not a completely horrible week, with the exception of some of those Marvel books that had to deal with the XMen and Avengers stuff. It was just a bit more of a disappointing week. Nothing overly exciting. Nothing that would really call or warrant a immediate rush to your rush to go and pick up. So, and that'll do it pretty much for this week. I expect next week to be a kind of another smaller week. So I'll probably do some manga or whatever, but who knows? Could be surprised a little bit. But until then, thanks for watching, and God bless.